Hello, I'm Brooke Dibley from Simply Speaking SLT, and you're watching my tutorial for my editable board games. On the screen here you will see my pizza themed board games. However, this tutorial applies for all of the editable board game packs that have this tutorial linked to them in the document. Now, this tutorial here is for iPad users, so you might be wondering why we're starting off on my computer in Adobe Acrobat Reader. Now, for best results when using this on an iPad, I suggest you start in Adobe Acrobat Reader to add your targets. This does work technically in the app I'm going to show you later on. However, the form fields show up blue and it can mess with the look and the understanding of the game. So open this up in Adobe Acrobat Reader, add your targets, and then do what I'm about to show you to save it, and then send them to your iPad and you'll be able to use them. So we're going to go to Menu. And here's some of the tutorials here that go with this document, and we're going to insert our targets. So I'm going to hit insert your targets. So the way that this document works is we fill in our targets on this front page here in these text boxes by removing the original text and typing in our targets in these boxes here, and then it automatically fills in the rest of the document, and then we can play these games on the iPad, and I'll show you how to do that soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this page here, which is page 3, in case you're wanting to know where it is in the document, I'm going to go ahead and fill in some high frequency words for the S sound for articulation. However, you could write in longer questions and statements in here as well, depending on what you're targeting. And just note that for best results, keep your targets on a single line within the text box. So I'll just show you how long that is. So you can write quite a lot until it goes down to the second line. You can keep going into the second line, however, for best results and the ability to read your targets, I suggest you leave it all on one line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my targets and then bring you back. Okay, so here we are. We've got S in all positions in high frequency words. Because this is a word-based activity, we're not using pictures, we're using words. It's a great opportunity to use high frequency words, which is great for generalization for our students. Now, let's have a look what's happened to the rest of this document. It is now all full of our targets. And what we're going to do now is we're going to print this to PDF so we can send it to our iPad. The reason we're printing to PDF is so that when we send this to our iPad, all of the form fields have been flattened. Because these form fields, that's what these text boxes are called, because they're editable, it will mean that the resulting PDF is editable if we don't flatten them. And therefore you'll be playing the game and next minute you'll hit a text box and the keyboard will come up and it can just get a little bit annoying. So go ahead and save a copy of this for this, you might call it the S sound games or anything like that, and then make some more for your other targets you want to work on. Once you've saved it once, you've got it forever to use, which is awesome. And do remember that at the bottom of this document there is the printable games as well. So if you'd rather just print and play, you can do that, but this is the iPad based tutorial. So to print to PDF, I'm going to go File, Save, Print, File, Print. And I'm going to choose not PDF Creator, I'm going to choose Microsoft Print to PDF. Hopefully your computer has a PDF printer on it already. It's where you pick the printers when you're going to print. And instead of printing onto paper, you're just printing it into a new document format, which is another PDF. I'm going to choose Fit, and I'm going to make sure that Landscape is chosen, so that the games are all around the right way. Now, if you do not have a printer, PDF printer installed on your computer, I believe most computers, Windows and Macs, come with them, but if you don't, go ahead and Google PDF printer and see which ones come up for your system. So you might put in PDF printer Windows or PDF printer for Mac. Okay, now I'm going to hit print, and what will happen is it will bring up a place for me to save this by a name. I'm going to call it S Games and save it, and then send, and then come back to you. Okay, so that is printed as a new PDF, and now we can't click inside these boxes and type, which is what we want. And now this document here is what I'm going to send to myself and open up on my iPad in an app which I will link to in the description of this video. Okay, so I've sent this to myself on Facebook Messenger, so I'm just going to click it. And then I'm going to choose the arrow soon to open this in Safari. So see this black arrow here. Oops, sorry. See this black arrow here. I'm going to hit that and choose Open in Safari. You might get this to your iPad in a different way. You might choose to email it to yourself or use Google Drive or something like that. And then what we're going to do now that it's loaded, I'm going to hit this blue arrow again. So this blue arrow is what's going to help you open it where you need to open it. Now I'm going to go ahead and open this in Notes Writer, which is this app right here. Now Notes Writer is a great app. I will link to it in the description of this video. Okay, and it's just going to open up. Moment. There it is. Remember that because we flattened this, the menu button's not going to work anymore. So we're just going to scroll up to our games. So there's our targets and there's our game. So this is our first game. Let's go through and I'll show you how we play these games. So in this app, the one thing that's really great about it is we can add game pieces in the form of shapes or clip art. I like to use clip art. So if we use this plus button here, we can scroll down and choose clip art, and your students can choose their game piece. My students normally like to choose a type of transportation. I'm going to choose this blue car for the sake of this video. So you would insert as many game pieces as needed for this game, depending on how many players, and put them on the start. And then you'd use a normal dice to roll your dice. Otherwise, you can use my number spinners in my store. However, that's not necessarily necessary for this game. I would just use a normal dice and roll the dice and move along, like by clicking once to select it. So tap on it once to select it and then move it along, just like you would in a normal board game. So again, like I said, you'd insert as many game pieces, clip art, as you need per player. So that's how this game works, and you essentially move your way up the board until you get to the end. Now, when playing this type of game, I like to use a dice that just has 1 to 3 on it. So I've just taken a little black block and put 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on the sides. And then I also have a dice that goes up to 20. So we roll both of them, and the dice of 1 to 3 tells us how far we get to move. And then the next dice tells us how many times we have to say our word, if it was articulation that we were working on. However, like I mentioned earlier, you can do questions and statements and words and language goals. For example, you could put some words in and ask your students to find synonyms or antonyms, compare, contrast, those kind of things. Okay, now let's go to the next page. This works exactly the same. You're just working your way around this board, and it's just a bit longer. So for your students that can handle a longer game, it allows you to be able to get in more trials. And now this game here works similar, that you would add in your game piece, but you're moving around and around the outside of the board. And what happens is every time you bounce over a pizza for this game, but it might be a different clip art depending on the theme that you've bought, if you land on bounce here, you can bounce over and you get a point. And you need to decide as the players how many points we need to get to win. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose this text box here. And when I click that, it's going to give me some text options. I'm going to choose the text box there, and I'm going to just put a text box right here and write in how many points we need to win. So the first to 5 wins I've decided for this game, and if I want to, I can make the text bigger so it shows up nicer, and then I can move it up if I want to, but I'm not going to move it up for this because we're just going to move on with our tutorial. Okay, and so now I'm going to add another text box here, and we can write in our points. And I might put Brooke, and then enter Larry if that was my other student, and then we can come back to this text area and type in our points as we go around. And so that's how this game works. You can keep track of your points here in this box, or you can choose to just write your points on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, or keep track another way so that you know who's going to win as you move around and around the board. You decide together whether you're going clockwise or anti-clockwise, and sometimes my students and I play that if you roll a 6, we change directions. Okay, and then the next page, we'll just go to... So this one's nice and straightforward. It's tic-tac-toe. You can either choose to use the annotation tools here. If you double click the pen up there, you can choose your color, your thickness, that kind of thing. And so you can choose your color. Oops. And then click that pen again and noughts and crosses. Or you can choose to use clip art as your game pieces, and you might do, you know, yellow cars versus blue cars or something like that. So this is essentially just tic-tac-toe like you would normally play with a piece of paper, except you can use your annotation tools here, and then your targets are there. So you would use this with a dice, and every time we choose to put an X or an O on a square, we have to say our word and roll the dice to see how many times. And then this one here, this is kind of open-ended. There are a few ways you could play this. So you could put pieces of Lego on top of these circles and then roll the dice, and if I rolled a 5, I get to pick up this piece of Lego and start building with it, and then I have to say soon a certain amount of times. Or you can play that you could insert some clip art or some shapes, or even just cross off with annotation tools by rolling a dice. So let me show you what I mean. If I rolled a 3, for example, I was doing, let's just do X's and O's again, and I was the X, I would cross off this here, and I'd say most as many times as I've rolled, and then the next person would have their turn, and they might be blue, and they might roll a 3 as well, so they get to go here, and then I, as the red player, might roll a 5 and go here, and the aim of the game is to try and get up to the top here to the pizza to win. So for example, if the blue player had put on these X's and then I rolled a 5, I as the red player would win. So that's one way I often play this game, and there are many other ways you can kind of use this quite open-endedly. When we print it, I use this with dot markers quite often, or a Play-Doh smash mat. So there is that opportunity too, but I do not recommend you do that with your iPad. Okay, now let's look at this last few pages here. So this here is a bounce game, and so if we add in some game pieces again, I'm just going to add in 1, but like I've said, you can add in as many as you need for your players. This blue car gets used a lot in my therapy room, so I'll pop the blue car here. So we roll a dice, and the instructions are up the top here. You use shapes or annotations or counters, so we're using these clip art here, and a digital dice, it says here, but because we're on an iPad, you could just use a normal dice and move along the rows, and then you can start at either end of the top row. If you land on a square with an arrow, so that's like these here, you can move down, but if you don't, you have to keep moving across until you get to the end, and then you move back again. So for example, if I was this blue car and I rolled a 2, I'd go 1, 2, and I can't move down yet, but if I rolled another 2, 1, 2, I could move down. But then I have to choose which way I'm going to go. So if I rolled a 2, 1, 2, and then I rolled a 2, 1, 2, I then would have to go back the other way. If I rolled a 1, if I rolled a 1, I'd go here. Oh, no, sorry. If I was over here, I could bounce down. Silly me. And so on and so forth. And the first person to the bottom down here wins. So as you can see, this arrow down here, how this arrow works is if you land on or if you land on this. So either of these squares, you get to go down the bottom and you win. And the last page of No Print Games is this one here. Now, how I normally play this is with squares. So I'll just go ahead and show you that. So if we go to this line up here, the square will come up. So if we click the square here and click it again, we can now choose our fill. So I've got my fill set to black and my outline color set to red, but I could choose any color there. And then I'm going to hit the rectangle again because we now are selecting a rectangle, and I'm going to draw rectangles over all these words here. Whoopsies. Just hit that undo button there. And then I'm going to do this for the entire page. Now, one thing you may not have realized is there's a line here which shows us the middle of the page. So on this side is the same images as on this side, with the same image down here and the same word up here. So the purple car is always going to go with inside, but they're in different places. So on this side, inside is at a different place than on this side. So I'll show you in a moment how we're going to play memory. I'll just add the rest of my squares. I also just want to point out that if you want to grab one of your squares to resize it, select this hand here, and then you can click and resize your squares. And you can copy them as well. So we could copy them if you'd rather just copy them and paste them, but it's easier actually just to keep drawing them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and now I've done that, we can see that we've got 3 on this side and 3 on this side in each row. And so I help my students to, sometimes I might make this color different on this side, but for the sake of this tutorial, we're just doing black, but these might be red and these might be blue, so my students can see the 2 sides. And then all we do is we go back to this hand here so that we can, for gameplay, so we can pick up our squares and we select a square and we move it and we select another square and move it and see if we can find our match, and then we pop them back. So if we find a match, oh, I found that one. Yay, I found a match. Then I'm going to delete those cards, and each time we uncover a card, I have my students say their sound. Just to clarify how I deleted that, I'm going to select another one. See, the rubbish bin comes up, so that's how I delete it. But I don't delete it until we've found a match, because you're going to have to put them back on. So that is how you play the memory part of this game. So of course you would quickly add your rectangles over top of the cards while the student couldn't see, so you could play memory. Okay, and then if we keep scrolling down, this is the printable version. And if we hit up here, this tile here, we can see all the included pages if you want to be able to scroll down to a certain game. And I also want to point out that at the bottom of the PDF here are my terms of use. My terms of use across 3 pages. This is my thank you page where you can find my contact information if you need to get in touch. And then we have my very clear terms of use, which point out to you that you are not able to share this with other people if outside of your caseload. If you have other people, other therapists, teachers who want a copy of this activity, this editable game set, you need to send them to my store to get their own. And my store is linked under this button here on the original document. If you were to share it with them, it would be against copyright because you've only bought a license for one, and they'll be very unethical, okay? So please respect copyright law and do not share this with other people. Send them to my store if they want a copy. And then here is just my attributions page to the clip artist whose clip art I used within these games. Okay, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and it was helpful. Please be in touch if you have any questions. Like I said, my contact information is under these buttons and they're linked in the original document. Bye.